And we are live. Okay, so this is November, what's the date today? November 25th, DoneJS contributors meeting, where we are going to go through what's happened in the world of DoneJS for the last week and what our plans are for the next week. So let me get the Trello board. We used to organize this, and then I will go first. So the first thing that I did is I made on the CanJS Google Plus page, I made a YouTube video about how the view bindings work. So if you go to the CanJS page, we actually have to have a better link to get people to this. I always just do it by going, because I have an account.
I think we can give it an actual name too.
Yeah. So I made a video of how CanViewBindings work. I didn't get to CanViewScope. I'll probably do that soon. So I did a big cleanup and refactoring of CanViewBindings to make it so that attributes, if an attribute changes, the bindings can be reapplied. What that means is you can templatize just get a dummy page going here. It means, like this is an example of what you can do. You wanted to have if you wanted to have an event handler, so normally you might say, I want to listen to click. But on mobile, I might want to listen to, like, maybe there's a custom tap event or something like that you want to listen to. The change that I made allows you to templatize the the event names, or even templatize the method if you want. The method name. So I could programmatically say, oh well, now I want click to call remove user instead of delete user, or something like that. Or maybe if you're an admin or something, or you can templatize things like this now, which is pretty powerful. And you can do it with data bindings as well. So if I wanted two-way bind, let's say I wanted a two-way bind a person's age to some input element. I'm not sure exactly why you would do this. But input elements value, I wanted a two-way bind the age in the scope. Well, now I could toggle between two properties, like binding prop. Binding prop could be age, or could be binding prop could be a string age, and then this input would be two-way bound to the age in the scope, or binding prop could be some other value, and it would be bound to the person's name or something like that. These type of things are very useful if you are building like form builders, where you want to loop through a bunch of properties, like each item in a map, like each form property, or each a property in some type of type. For each prop, you want to create an input element for it. This kind of stuff is doable now, which is nice. I did that, and then the next thing that I'm working on is a doozy, and it's this issue. Basically, I'll give it an example because I wrote up the example. There's a problem with computes that they don't evaluate themselves in a batch correctly. And David and I worked really hard in 2.2 to fix all of these cases, and apparently they still exist. So, say I have a root compute. Say I have a root compute, and then I have two child computes that depend on the root compute. And then I have a grandchild that depends on one of the children. And then I have a result that depends on the grandchild. This should be grandchild 1 here, but I didn't write the 1. And grandchild 2. What essentially this looks like is you have your root, and you have your two children that depend on it. Then grandchild 1 depends on this compute, and then the result depends on the result of these two computes. But they all eventually depend on this root. The problem was when root was changing, the change event would fire here, and then fire here, so that when the result was built, it was not including essentially the updated result of grandchild 1. So that's a bug. The fix is that I'm doing, and it made the performance worse, so I'm trying to then bring back performance, because the whole point of, a big point of 2.3 was how much faster computes are in 2.3. But the fix was essentially what we're going to do is when root changes during a batch, it's going to notify all of its dependent computes. So this compute will be notified, this compute will be notified, and they will notify their dependencies. This will be notified, this will be notified, and then this is going to notify this as well. And what they're going to do is keep track of how many of their computes might be changing in this batch of changes. And by the way, well, Julian, I know you can't really ask questions, but Prashant, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I've already gone through this with David, so he's familiar with kind of what I'm talking about here. So again, the idea is that when this is changing, before it submits its change events, it's actually going to say, hey, notify everything that this is about to change, and each compute will kind of keep track of the number of items that are about to change, that it needs to wait for essentially until it can calculate its value. So then root will actually fire a change event, which C2 will see. It'll say, okay, I've gotten one change event which matches my number of computes that I depend on, so I know I can update myself. And then the change event will fire here. Result will say, okay, I've gotten one change event of the total number of computes that I'm waiting for, so I can't update my value yet. Then the event will fire here. It'll say, okay, I can reevaluate because I'm just waiting on one change event. It'll fire its own change event, which will go here. It'll say, okay, well, I'm only waiting on one change event, so I can update my value, and finally produce a change event here, which will say, okay, now I've received two change events. I can recalculate my value. So the way I did it now is in this get value and bind, which is like really the heart of computes. Essentially what's happening is anytime a compute is anytime an observable is kind of read as part of a compute, it calls this can observe, which essentially adds that dependency and whatever event we should be listening on the dependency, like change events. So previously we used to bind to just that on that. Essentially what we're doing here, just to give better ideas, let's say we're C2, we're evaluating what C2 needs to listen to, and it needs to listen to root. So what we bind to is root's change event. Now what we also bind to is a change notify event. And when those happen, we call the source notify method, which essentially is going to do that, add that count of dependencies that it's waiting on. And then once an actual change event happens, it calls this dependency change, which essentially is going to decrement count until it's equal to 0, and then fire the actual callback that computes use to reevaluate themselves and get their new value. So most of it I did inside of this object observed info object. So it's kind of contained, but the thing is it creates twice as many events and twice as many bindings, which are really slow. So in this issue, I proposed a way to make it a little faster, which is essentially I'm going to kind of keep a global store of kind of computes that are bound and what things are listening to them, what other computes are listening to them. And this provides me the same kind of graph information that this does. So I'll be able to use that to not have to set up any bindings or events. I can just, it's much faster. Instead of dispatching a bunch of events and then having the event kind of move to the next thing and trigger more events and trigger more events, that's a lot of function calls. I should be able to do what I'm talking about with just one function call, to build these numbers up in one function call, which will be good. All right. I don't know if you guys have any questions there, but that's what I'm working on. And so for next week, hopefully we'll finally have 2.3.3 out with this fix, maybe a few other fixes, and a CanJS 2.3 release article. So those are my goals. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta look at the pull request too. So last 2 days, I mostly worked on, we want to automate. So what we want to do is we want to automate testing the DoneJS chat guide, our quick start guide, and eventually the place my order guide too. Which means that we'll have an automated script that runs in CI through the entire guide whenever we make a new release of any of the DoneJS dependent projects, which is going to be pretty helpful because then we know we really don't break anything for sure. So I worked on getting those running reliably in CI. I managed to do that with Travis CI in Linux. It was
You want to show what the tests look like?
Yes, sure. Here, I'm gonna show my browser. So we have this DoneJS chat guide repository, and I'm gonna make this a little bigger. Oops. And basically, you have this guide object that lets you do automation. So in this case, for step 1, we install DoneJS. Then we run DoneJS init with those prompts. So this will automatically answer, reply all those prompts. And then what else is interesting? So for this one, for example, we start DoneJS develop and then run a Mocha test that makes sure that it all started and it's up and running. Here's the next step, install Bootstrap. So it literally follows all those steps. And the nice thing is we have the code for each step is in here. Oh, this is not the one I wanted to show. So here is how our index.stash looks like for that step. And what we're doing for the guide on donejs.com, so this one, now, if you go to adding Bootstrap, this file is basically the same as this file. So if we change our code for the guide, the tests will automatically update. So that's actually going to be super helpful.
Well, you mean we actually changed the test?
Yes, sorry.
Automatically.
Yeah, we changed the test and the guide will update automatically. So that's going to be very, very helpful for us to be sure that new project releases don't break it.
So One question that I had is I was kind of surprised that there's this like guide object. I just assumed it would be this just big like Mocha test. What like what's the test harness then?
I think Matthew had just the automation for starting processes and Mocha tests and spying on things in the browser.
What? I guess I'm confused. Like, why is like what reports these? Is it just Mocha?
No, I think it's just a node script. Here it's
Any reason why? I mean, maybe this is a question from Matthew when he gets back.
Probably a math. Yeah, so I just use it and it actually works quite well. I don't think there is a real reason to like need a test harness really. What this does
is that's
it
interesting. Yeah, I guess I can kind of understand why.
Yeah.
Normal.
So what this does is it kicks off other Mocha tests. So those, where is it? So those are tests that are being kicked off individually on a per step basis.
Yeah,
so this one, for example, runs a get to localhost.
No, I know. I don't understand why that's just not part of like a bigger test suite itself.
Might probably be an optimization. We can talk to him what this reasoning was for that. But at least the whole thing is working now, which was tricky enough, at least in Linux. In Windows, it still gets stuck on one of the last steps. So that's hopefully what I'm going to figure out today.
The big reason why I could see it is a lot of test suites, they let you run things out of order, but you definitely can't run things out of order. Right?
This has to be like step by step. So I don't know. I thought once I added all the tests, like all the right, there was some timing issues. So once I had the right timing in, it actually worked really well, at least on Travis CI. So the last thing that's still left is making sure that it all passes on Windows, and then I think we have a pretty good infrastructure for making sure that all this is working and automated, which is going to be nice.
So what's next then? What's for Wednesday?
Well, today's Wednesday. Right?
No, I meant like next Wednesday.
So. Oh, next Wednesday. So let me stop sharing my screen. I think we're going to 2.3.3, which probably for me isn't going to take too long because it's just getting the release out for that.
Yeah. I think I haven't
thought about what else.
I think the biggest things right now are there's the session issue that needs to be solved. It really there's two options, and it kind of depends. We'll talk with Matthew and figure out how to break it up between you two. But I see so a lot of the big things for 0.6 just will be easier for probably Matthew to do, like the SSR stuff that's what most of it is. And then the other thing would be, what I think I'm going to work on is the CanJS getting started guide, and then what you could probably be working on is the place my order guide and getting those tests, getting that automation there.
Yeah, I was thinking since I'm all in there already, that will probably be the best thing, and we might catch the place my order guide is way more in detail, so we probably catch a bunch more issues with that.
Some stuff might be very difficult, like setting up CI, those steps. I don't know. That's kind of so to have our own CI setting up another CI.
Yeah. So I was thinking, what we want to test primarily, right, is our releases of CanJS and SteelJS and things like that. I almost skip things like setting up CI, which is just adding a Travis CI script, really, right? There isn't really anything we're doing.
No, but we should still be running our tests, though, making sure they would pass if this Travis was set up correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can't do everything, right? Like for example, we can't do an iOS build on Travis CI. That's just not possible. So.
All right. Well, then maybe we need to move off Travis then.
I don't know if they maybe they do have Mac OS instances, but I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, but we could
Probably
do
maybe
Android
only
though.
in their paid. I think they have paid Mac OS instances now, and we're paying for it, right?
I don't know. We could do Android probably too.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm can't even set it up myself. I'm going to look forward to setting this up automated. But yeah,
Yeah.
so there's still a couple of
Oh,
small
so the
things.
current test suite is not testing building to Android then?
Um, it's not set up on Travis. Yeah, I know. It's
Oh,
building to iOS if I run it locally.
yeah, but we want that automated.
Yeah, so I guess then I'll have to look into adding that
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, we should do that. Um, cool. It'd be hard. You have to figure out how to test that too.
Android is such a pain just to use, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, we'll have to figure. I mean, we just have to figure that. It's like CanJS. The fact that we have to test every million combination, but you know, we do.
For
Right?
good
Like
reason too, because
it's
before
broken
it was
a million times. Yeah,
yeah.
breaks all the time. If we when we even though we have these tests, we still break it. And so yeah, it's really good to be doing that. Um,
Well, I'm gonna have 2 quiet days, I guess, tomorrow and Friday. So
Definitely tomorrow. I'll be around Friday a little bit.
okay.
Okay, cool. So Prashant, any updates from you?
Yeah, Justin. So I was looking at the list of open issues that we have currently, and I was looking at some of the issues where we are having problems with the percentage scope and I think percentage root property.
What property? I didn't hear the.
The percentage root property,
Okay. Do you
it's
know the
not,
issue number offhand?
yeah, so that is, I think, 2080.
Let me look it up. $20.80. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I think I could start on this issue. I could try reproducing this issue on my setup.
Okay. Let me. We should add you here. Let me actually add you as an Julian,
Sure.
the collaborator right now. Really. So, Prashant, what's your GitHub?
Oh, that's Prashant Sharma.India.
Prashant Sharma. What was it?
That should be Prashant Sharma India.
India?
Yeah, just a minute. Just
There it is.
let
I
me
found it.
check it again.
This one.
Yeah, that's it.
And then Julian, what's yours? I know you're not around, but maybe. Oh yeah, thanks. Okay. Now you guys actually have uh, commit access. So you can actually now commit things to CanJS. You can make as many. The rule of thumb is don't ever put anything into master. Make branches, and then David or I will merge it in after a review.
Okay.
But you can make as many branches as you want and push stuff there, and then just submit pull requests into master or eventually minor. We start working from a minor, and then let me go back to that issue. Now the nice thing is we can assign these to you. Oh well, we can assign it once you've accepted your invitation.
Okay, let me do that right away.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Um, so the fix that I had in mind for this
Yeah.
was it's kind of hacky, but root is probably going to go away with 3.0 anyways because it just won't be. I don't think it'll be needed as much. Was here after when the view model is created. So like right about here on line 160, I was just gonna. It's a terrible fix, but I think it's just the easiest one, and I was just gonna hack the serialize call. I was gonna take the old serialize method, and then I was going to replace it with a different method that deletes the that property.
Will this still show up when we call .adder without any argument?
It will, but that's fine, I think. So it's just something like this. And this isn't the prettiest fix, but it's a good enough fix, I think, for 99% of what people might do. And we'll clean this up for 3.0. Let me just put that in, and then you can use that.
Just a quick question, Justin. So this is so what we're talking about is the percentage root property. Do we have other properties that start with percentage? Do we need to take care of those properties as well?
No, only percentage root is added somewhat unexpectedly to the view model of all can maps essentially, or sorry, all view models of components. So there's other percentage properties, but they're added to like their own kind of thing. They're added to their own like temporary context in the scope. So really, no, this is the only one.
Okay.
The reason why we add this is because the reason why it's there is because it's actually for DoneJS. It's so that if you want to label some data as being needed for when the to prevent server-side rendering from running right away, like when we're doing server-side rendering, we need to know what AJAX request to wait for. So what you can do is in a you do this in a I think you could do this in a getter. So if I had like to-do getter in my define plugin, I had to-dos, and this was, there's a getter here. What I wanted to do is make to-dos the list of to-dos that I'm using to, or the list of to-dos that I'm getting from the server. So I might have something like, if I'm using CanConnect, I would have get list. I'd get my list of to-dos, and then when I get them all, I might do something like to-dos, and then resolve list of to-dos. So this makes the to-dos property an actual list of to-dos that was asynchronously loaded from the server. However, I want to wait for that data. So what I can do is, here's my promise. I want to make sure that the server-side rendering doesn't run until after. The reason why root is there is so we can actually get access to the root application view model to say, hey, wait for this promise. So we kind of stuck this on there because we needed a way to do that. But in the new server-side rendering, you'll actually just be able to call can wait or something like that, and it's wait for promise. So you don't need that thing anymore, the access to the root anymore, so we can remove it. So it was kind of added as a temporary fix to make server-side rendering work nice, but we won't actually need. We got a better solution now.
Okay.
Cool. So hopefully that can kind of get you rolling.
Yeah, sure.
Just ping me if you need any help with that.
Sure.
So Julian, who's not in a position to talk right now, asked me if I could talk about CanConnect cache lifetime for him, and yes, I can. So Julian is working on an issue related to, where is it? Cache lifetime. Where he would like a way to say, hey, like the fall through cache, we'll use right now. When something's in local storage, it'll always just kind of use that data in local storage for the fall through cache, or any of the caching mechanisms are really just like once data is in there, it's just going to use it no matter how long or how stale that data might be. So what he's suggesting is to be able to specify kind of a lifetime on some type of caching data. And we talked about it a little bit, and Julian and I haven't had time yet to look at this, but just the idea that we had is that we kind of came out to is instead of adding instead of adding some kind of lifetime awareness to the memory cache and the local storage cache, instead we could make another behavior that can sit on top of the local storage or memory cache that understands this lifetime information and can make things work. So, for instance, I could have a lifetime cache that was added on top of local storage, and I could use the base connect would be the local storage. I could say, hey, get the data from local storage, but if that data's last updated date is, well, if it's within the lifetime that we care about, then we're going to actually send that data back as cached data to like fall through cache or something. And then if not, well, even though we might have had the data, we're still going to reject as if the data is not there. I realized, I had a comment for you should also remove that set of data so that the server is not, or so that local storage doesn't keep it anymore. And it seems like Julian's got some of this potentially working, but unfortunately I haven't had a time to look at it, but we kind of already talked, and hopefully we'll be able to talk after the training today. And then I will look at it then. So, I think that's it. Cool. Any other comments? Cool. All right. Well, then I will talk to you all next week. Thanks so much again for joining us. It's nice to see how much stuff is getting done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving, Justin.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, David.
And then I'm sending out Julian, I don't know if you gave me your address. I know Prashant, I have yours. I'll probably be sending out stuff. We're getting in our next shipment of sweatshirts and t-shirts. We should be getting it like Monday, Tuesday. So I know Prashant, I have your address, but Julian, if you haven't given me yours, make sure you give it to me. and then I'll make sure I get you guys your cool swag. So, thanks. Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.